across the UK, online and on DAB.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking. Listen up, comrades of the world. Unite. He's a weapon of mass discussion, and he's back on your radio.
Get ready for a revolutionary rumble on your radio with the original George of the political jungle.
Galloway, celebrate. The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway. Come have a go if you think you're hard enough. Get it? On the radio station that gives power to the people. Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Every Friday between 7 and 10, I'm here at Talk Radio with the mother of all talk shows. I need your calls, 0844 499 1000. I need your texts, 87222. I need your tweets, at Talk Radio or at George Galloway. We're never going to go short of things to talk about.
Big Georgie Galloway's back on the radio!
Galloway, celebrate. The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio.
I thought we were going to have what we might call a normal show. In other words, only a major coup and convulsion in the Labour Party. Only deeply split and unelected British government. Only the danger of Donald Trump getting his hands on the nuclear button. That would have been a normal show. That would have been what passes for normal nowadays. But it's Friday, and I'm here, so it's obvious there's going to be breaking news. And that breaking news is getting worse and worse. There are at least 2 gunmen on the loose in Munich, in Germany. The second terrorist attack in Germany this week. We'll be talking to the Guardian's correspondent in Germany later in the hour, and we'll be keeping you updated on what's happening. By the way, the reports are now that there are 3 gunmen involved in the shooting in at least 2 places, a shopping mall and now in a metro station. It's possible, though not confirmed, that 15 people are already dead. If that's true, there will be at least 2 or 3 times that number already wounded. And if none of these gunmen have yet been stopped on what the police have described as a rampage, then obviously the danger of more deaths, perhaps many more deaths, is real and present. Last week, you'll recall, the mass murder in Nice had happened on the overnight, Thursday to Friday. We're going to cover this in depth, and we're going to talk about it and its meaning. But I want to say something to you now which will make 1 or 2 of you uncomfortable. There were other mass killings, mass terrorist killings in the world this week. You just don't know about them because the mainstream media didn't tell you about them. The United States and France killed 75 civilians in Syria this week without a peep in the mainstream media. A 13-year-old Palestinian child, a young boy that looked like your son or my son, had his head cut, sawed, hacked off his shoulders by men who filmed themselves doing so, shouting the name of God as they did it, and lamenting the fact that maybe they should have boiled him alive instead. These were not ISIS, by the way, not even Al-Qaeda. These were the moderate rebels that you are paying for. You, the taxpayer, are sending money and weapons and other materiel to the Free Syrian Army, so-called, whose soldiers carried out the savage beheading of a small Palestinian child this week. You didn't know that, did you? At least you didn't know it if you're not on social media, if you're not following me on Twitter. You certainly didn't know it if you're reliant on the mainstream media. Now, why am I labouring this point? Because you cannot understand what's going on in Munich, in Berlin, in Brussels, in Paris, and God forbid, any day now in London if you don't know these other things. If you don't know where this has come from, you're never going to know how to bring it under control.
Big Georgie Galloway's back on the radio!
Galloway, celebrate. The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio.
It's a very serious situation that we are in now in the world. My film, The Killings of Tony Blair, has its premiere in the West End on Wednesday and fanning out across the country. It's a timely product, even though I say so myself, because it's only 2 weeks since we had the Chilcot inquiry report, and where has that gone? Whatever happened to that? Where's the outrage? Where's the convulsion? Where's the pressure for trials, for justice? Where's the pressure in the political class to change what led to the disaster that Chilcot uncovered in the course of his 8-year, £10 million inquiry? Where? Whatever happened to the Chilcot inquiry? What happened to Tony Blair, who was so savagely criticised in it, and the others, his adjutants, his servants, who were so savagely criticised in it? Why am I talking about this? Because if you don't understand the centrality of the crime against Iraq in 2003 and the million deaths that it caused, 1 million deaths that it caused, you're never going to understand what's going on in the world. Earlier this week in Germany, a young man who said he was 17, might be older, an Afghan refugee, went berserk with a knife and an axe, stabbing people and trying to cut the heads off people. What could have been wrong with this boy? Well, ask yourself why a 17-year-old boy is in Germany as a refugee. Because we attacked his country. You might say to me, well, we attacked his country because of 9/11, because of the presence there of bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. But, dear listeners, it was we who sent bin Laden to Afghanistan. It was we who built up the armies of Afghanistan, the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, which has now morphed into an even more hideous, disgusting, revolting, satanic form called ISIS. If you don't know that, and why should you know it? You're certainly not being taught it at school. You're certainly not being reminded of it in the mainstream media. But if you don't know that we built the Frankenstein monster that became Al-Qaeda and became ISIS, how are you going to understand what needs to be done now to confront it? And that's only the issue that I didn't think I'd be talking about. What about the coup, the chicken coup, that took so many weeks to take off? First the Eagle, then she landed, crashed and burned, and was supplanted by someone we've never heard of, called Owen Smith. They're out to get Jeremy Corbyn, aren't they? I mean, a blind man in a hurry can see that. They're out to destroy Jeremy Corbyn, that is for sure. It's a full coup d'etat. It has the state broadcaster. It has virtually all of the media. It has virtually all of the political class. It has virtually all Labour members of Parliament involved, whilst hundreds of thousands of members of the Labour Party have not even yet got their ballot papers. And they didn't think they'd need one, because it's only 10 months ago that they elected the leader they've already got. We'll be talking to one of the MPs campaigning for Owen Smith later. We did try. Oh, how we tried. Day and night we tried to persuade Owen Smith to come on the radio himself. He wants to be the Prime Minister. He wants, in the short term, to face up to the Prime Minister but he can't face up to me. I wonder why that might be. Let me know what you think. 0844 499 1000. And then we'll be crossing the Atlantic, where the sage, John Le Boutillier, the man who's talked us through for many years the topsy-turvy world of United States politics. Well, he's never had anything to report on quite like the Republican Party convention this week. If the U.S. politics is normally a circus, this was a chamber of horrors. This was a house of horrors. Hammer could not have invented characters like Donald Trump and his family and his adjutants. We had a congressman, a Republican congressman, openly talking about white superiority from the platform of the Republican Party convention. But come November, this man might have his finger on the nuclear trigger. It's really an extraordinary state of affairs. Let's catch up with some of the highlights from the week. Well, we're going to do that right after the break.
Call me have a go if you think you're hard enough. Get it? The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway
On Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Do indeed. 0844 499 1000. That's the number to call me. You can tweet also at Talk Radio or at George Galloway, or you can, of course, text us at 25 pence plus normal sending charges on 87222. Now let's take some of the highlights of the week because they set up the discussion that we're going to have. Here's Angela Eagle announcing she's pulling out of the leadership race in the Labour Party on Tuesday.
We finished the first day of nominations. Owen Smith has a lead, and I think that it's in the best interest of the Labour Party that we now come together so that we can have one candidate. So I'm announcing tonight that I'm withdrawing from this race and supporting Owen. We have a Labour Party at the moment that is not working. We've got a leader that doesn't have the confidence of his members of parliament and isn't reaching out to the country. We need to have a strong and united Labour Party so that we can be a good opposition, take the fight to the Conservative government and heal our country.
Well, that was the stalking horse going back into the stable. Let's hear from Corbyn himself. He launched his re-election campaign earlier this week.
Today, we are very clear. We are proud to defend the tax credits built up by Gordon Brown and proud to defend our greatest creation, social security for all. I'm making the commitment today that the next Labour government will require all employers to publish equality pay audits, detailing pay, grade and hours of every job alongside data on recognised equality characteristics. Those that may not agree with me politically, may not even like me, I hold out the hand of friendship to them all, because come September, when this election is done and dusted, there will still be a Tory government in office.
And then there was Owen Smith. You may not have heard of him before. You certainly will over the next 8 weeks. This is him making his case for his campaign.
I'm just looking forward to a debate with Jeremy about the issues, me putting what I see as the arguments Labour needs to be putting. Jeremy will obviously speak for himself. As I've said many times, Jeremy is to be congratulated for having brought lots of people into the Labour Party, reminded the Labour Party of its radical roots. Jeremy and I are both radicals, but I think I've got a practical edge to my socialism. I think I've got ideas about putting those radical ideas into practice as opposed to simply sloganising. Meetings are great in opposition, but they don't change people's lives.
Now, we couldn't get Owen to come on the show, but we did get one of his colleagues, Jenny Chapman, the Member of Parliament for Darlington. She is backing Owen Smith and has been kind enough to come on the radio and discuss it. Jenny, good evening to you.
Good evening, hi.
Now, Owen was being very, you could say, conciliatory in that clip that we just heard. Indeed, He went on to say that he would like Jeremy Corbyn to be the president of the Labour Party if he became leader. But by today that had all changed, and Jeremy had become a bully, encouraging a bullying culture. If he's a bully encouraging a bullying culture, why would you want him to be the president of the Labour Party?
Well, because that's not... No, I don't think anyone's called him directly a bully, personally. What Owen said and what I would say is that Jeremy's just allowed a culture to develop in the party where bullying has taken place, and particularly directed towards women. And, he could and he should have really stamped that out when it first started to emerge after his victory last year. He didn't do that. That doesn't make him himself personally a bully. Of course it doesn't. And what Owen's said, quite rightly, is that he recognises many of the good things that Jeremy's brought to the Labour Party over his career and during his spell as leader. And he feels that that should be acknowledged by the party. And I think that's right. And that sort of tells you a bit about the kind of person that Owen is. But one of the reasons that Owen said what he did today about the culture in the party is because me and many colleagues, and, don't forget, one of our friends and colleagues was murdered in the street doing her job just a few short weeks ago. And we've gone to Owen and we've said, look, if you're leader, what will you do about this? And he's actually listened to us and he's taken it seriously. And I just feel I've got more confidence that Owen will address this and take the temperature down in the party and just make it, the kind of party where people want to get involved, want to debate, where we can attract people who are not, interested in that kind of politics. And, that's why I'm backing Owen.
You do realise you have just linked Jeremy Corbyn with the murder of one of your colleagues?
No, I haven't. No, not at all. That's an awful thing to suggest. I haven't done that.
Well, what does Jeremy Corbyn have to do?
What I'm saying to you is that when something happens like that, it sends a shockwave around everybody who worked alongside her. And a good boss and a good leader would understand that and take extra steps to make sure that we're not feeling threatened, and that we have, a leader who calls out that terrible, terrible behaviour that's going on. And he just didn't do it. And a good employer, a good boss, would have done that. And he didn't. And a lot of us, we are upset about that. And he ought to understand why.
Well, you are now. You've just done it.
I am absolutely not. How dare you?
You've just done it twice. The listeners have heard it.
No,
you have said that Jeremy Corbyn has somehow failed to rise to the occasion of the murder of your late colleague.
I am saying that female MPs have never, ever been subjected to this kind of abuse that they are getting now. And it's being done in his name. Now, if you were the leader of a party and that was happening in your name, you would want to stamp that out immediately.
Stamp what out? What is it he isn't stamping out?
I would welcome you to look at my Facebook timeline and you'll see exactly
Life's too short, Jenny.
Well,
Life's
tell me about it. I know. It ought to be. But it's, looking at that, I don't really want to go into too much detail about the specific experiences I've had, because I don't want my kids worrying about it. And I know many, many colleagues have had, threats to themselves, their families, threats of murder, and they're going through the courts now. This isn't just some sort of hysterical, hypersensitive...
I could show you my scars, Jenny.
Well, I'll show you mine, mate, I tell you.
Well, yours are not actually physical, permanent scars. Mine are.
Well, sometimes the scars that take the longest to heal are the psychological ones.
Oh, trust me, my physical ones are taking a long time to heal. But is all this not a bit rich, coming from a candidate who's just pushed the only woman candidate, Angela Eagle, out of the race?
Well, Owen's not a woman. He's not a woman. I wish he was, but he's not. But this election is about many things, and, it's about your capacity to lead, it's about your clarity of vision, about your ability to reach out and win elections. And I felt that Owen was the best person to do that. Wish he was a woman, but, that's not the case.
But there was a woman in the race, and we were told that it was going to be wonderful that Labour could have finally a woman leader. Why was she elbowed out of the race?
Because I just thought, the qualities I've just described to you, I felt that Owen had, in spades, and I thought he was the better candidate. He's not a woman, but, there we are.
Well, that's so much for feminism. Now, let's talk...
I can still be a feminist.
But support the elbowing out of the woman in the race for yet another man. Let's move on then. Let's move on.
Okay.
One of the hottest issues that has emerged is Owen Smith's connection to Pfizer.
Yeah.
He was let's call it a spin doctor for them. He
headed up a large department in a multinational company that makes drugs, yes.
Public relations department.
Yes.
So he was the head of the public relations department of Big Pharma. Pfizer doesn't get any bigger. You've just conceded that.
And GSK make drugs just outside my constituency. I'm glad they do that.
Yeah,
they employ hundreds of my constituents.
But you do concede.
They make life-saving drugs that save lives all across the world.
They also kill people with their drugs, as is well attested, by using poor people in poor countries as guinea pigs for their products. And they've been involved in many a hot controversy over that. You must acknowledge...
Absolutely, yes, I do.
You must acknowledge that there's something controversial about someone running to be leader of the Labour Party who spun not just for Pfizer, but an even more controversial drug company, which was fined $750 million in the United States for selling dangerous products. He was also their spinner. You can't tell me you don't see there's a potential problem here when you're running to be leader of the Labour Party.
Well, I don't actually. I think it's a strength that he's worked, outside of politics in a big private sector company. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury worked in oil and gas in Africa, and, he seems to be able to manage to have a high moral compass. So I don't see that as a problem. I think it's an asset that the potential leader of the Labour Party has that experience. And I completely acknowledge there have been problems in the past particularly, and I think things have improved enormously with pharmaceutical companies. And I think now if you look at what they actually do, they do an awful lot of work for free. And I was talking to someone who works for GSK about this just last week, because I say they're a big employer in my constituency, on drugs to treat malaria, to prevent neonatal death in the developing world, because they are the first to acknowledge some of the very, very poor practices that you described, that have gone in the past, and
Owen
they've been held to account for that.
But Owen was working there when they were fined $750 million.
Are you saying that Owen Smith was responsible for what are you exactly trying to say?
I'm trying to say that he was, and you say it's a strength. He was the chief spin doctor for a company that was fined $750 million for selling dangerous drugs to the people of America. Now, I agree with you.
And I think it's quite good that politicians haven't just been MPs all their lives. Most people, I think, would agree with that. And we can't all work for charities and in the public sector. I worked for ASDA back in the day.
They've never been fined for killing people with their dangerous drugs.
Well, one of the reasons I left was over some of their shoddy employment practices at the time, actually.
Okay. Now, even to add to the controversy, we now learn that this man who worked for these two drug companies and was head of Pfizer's public relations department has appointed as the head of his campaign another leading spin doctor for Pfizer.
He's also just appointed Neil Coleman, who is the chief policy advisor for Jeremy Corbyn.
For Boris Johnson too.
He left Boris to work for Jeremy, I think you'll find. He's appointed some really strong women to head his campaign, and you made a point about feminism earlier. And, Owen will build a campaign and a team that will come from all walks of life, and that is a strength of his, and that's something that I wish Jeremy had done better. Owen is a team player, and he will work with people very, very well. And if that means involving people, from the business community, from, different sectors, he'll do that. And I think that is something the Labour Party desperately, desperately needs.
Jenny Chapman, thanks very much for joining us, MP for Darlington and one of Owen Smith's principal backers. As I say, we have pursued and pursued and pursued Mr. Smith himself, but they have inadvertently or advertently failed to get back to us. Now we need some news, I think, from Munich.
Come have a go if you think you're hard enough. Get it? The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway
on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
0844 499 1000. That's the number to call me. You call us, we'll call you back, and you'll be on the air. But first, I want to talk to Kate Connolly, the Guardian's Germany correspondent, about the extraordinary and dramatic events that are underway in the German city there. Kate, thanks for joining us. Well, we'll have her in a moment. Let me tell you what I know. What I know is that the police say that there are 3 gunmen still at large, that they have killed multiple people. Some reports say 15 or more, but only, I think, 3 fatalities have yet been confirmed. But we might get more now from Kate Connolly, the Guardian's Germany correspondent. Kate, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What can you tell us, bring us up to date, if you will, and then we'll go on to what might be happening and why it might be happening.
Indeed. Well, the 3 dead that you've just talked about, there are conflicting reports here as to whether that is true or not. The Bavarian Interior Minister, Joachim Herrmann, did go on the television to say there were 3 dead, and now it seems that the Interior Ministry might be riding back on that. We're not quite sure where that confusion has come from. What the police here are saying are that there are eyewitness reports of about 3 armed men who are on the loose in Munich. Again, these are unconfirmed reports, but the police are taking them very seriously. And there are also reports that these 3 men are operating potentially in 3 different locations in Munich. The place where the shootings were first reported from is the Olympia shopping centre in the north of the city. This was where the Olympics were held in Munich in 1972, and the area was then later turned into a shopping centre. A man in front of a McDonald's opened fire, and as we said, do not know. There are various injured people, we know for sure, but whether anybody's dead, we are not sure on that at the moment.
Have you an idea if these were automatic weapons? Were they long arms or short arms, any of that?
None of that has actually come through at all. There is, obviously, you can imagine, Twitter is going crazy with various reports, lots of conflicting reports. We understand that Facebook has put its safety check on for Munich so that people in Munich can let friends and family know that they are safe. And the whole area has been sealed off. The underground in Munich has been sealed off. People are being told to stay in their homes, and taxi drivers are being warned not to pick up passengers. We understand that this is in case any of the gunmen are trying to make a getaway and might try to do that in a taxi.
Now, this is the second incident this week. I think the other was also in Munich, at least in Bavaria, if I'm not wrong. Why are these things happening there? Give us some idea of what characteristics are there. As we discovered later, there was in Nice, for example. I had no idea myself that Nice was a hotbed of fanatic extremism amongst the Muslims that live there, high levels of extremism and engagement with extremist politics. Is that something that you would have guessed about Munich?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, Munich itself is a very liberal city with a social democrat mayor. It was, of course, and this is not me drawing conclusions where we do not yet know what the motivation of this attack might be. But Munich was the scene last summer, if you recall, of many of the thousands of refugees who arrived in Germany from Passau through Austria. They came through the Balkans, then up through Austria, and then arrived, many of them, in Munich to be greeted by locals enthusiastically giving them cups of water and what have you. So it was very much the focus of the refugee crisis last summer. But we do not know at the stage that this is a terror attack. Of course, we did have earlier this week, we did have the attack on a train in Würzburg in Bavaria, a man wielding an axe and a knife who we believe it was actually of Palestinian origin. So
yeah, it was originally said to be an Afghan, yeah?
That's right, but we understand he was actually travelling on a false passport. And I should correct that, not Palestinian, but Pakistani. We understand, though that is also unconfirmed. Police are still trying to ascertain his identity.
He was shot dead in the incident.
He was shot dead, yes. Lots of criticism of the police for that, but one can understand the circumstances, absolutely chaotic.
Sure.
There were about 30 people on the train. It was unclear. He was certainly not in the mood for putting down his weapons, so the police shot him dead, and they are now, that investigation is ongoing. We haven't had much more detail of that. We understand that 2 of the people he attacked are still critically ill in hospital.
Now this, if it turns out to be a terror attack, and I must say it looks rather like one, 3 people involved in a mass shooting, but we don't know for sure yet. But if it turns out to have been one, as the train attack clearly was, this is further pressure on the German Chancellor Merkel, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it will certainly put a lot of pressure on her. It will put pressure on her to come up with answers if it was to turn out that this was a terror attack involving any refugees who might have come into Germany over the last few months. But I think that we saw her earlier this week meeting with Theresa May for the first time, a very important encounter because terrorism was obviously very high on their agenda when they met. Of course, then the words Nice and Würzburg, where the knife attack happened, were what they were talking about. It's yet to be seen whether Munich is now going to be the latest terror location. But, of course, a lot of pressure on Merkel. She's been criticised a lot already for her open-door policy to refugees in Germany.
Well, Kate Connolly, thank you very much indeed for a very illuminating report there, the Guardian's Germany correspondent, setting some of the scene of the backdrop of the events that are now underway. We must presume sometimes if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. This looks like a terrorist attack, another one in a major European city, a household name, Munich, part of it in the Olympic area, where, of course, the notorious, infamous mass killing at the Munich Olympics in 1972 took place, showing you just how long ago and how ancient are the political undercurrents that still fuel these conflicts. We'll go to calls, but after this.
Listener comrades of the world, unite! The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway
On Talk Radio, we'll get you talking.
Now, Ophelia says on Twitter, what more was Jeremy Corbyn supposed to do? Stand as a bodyguard? This was in response to the quite extraordinary and I believe quite disgraceful statement made by Owen Smith's spinner, Jenny Chapman MP, that somehow Jeremy Corbyn had failed to respond properly to the murder of Joe Cox, which of course has a suspect in prison, under charges and facing trial and can't be discussed. So it was a rather low blow, in my opinion, from Jenny Chapman, a classic example of how to deliver the most extreme and outlandish statements in the most moderate language and voice. It's quite an art. It's a kind of spin doctor's art, if you ask me. And Crumbs says, fantastic show by Galloway. This is what talk radio was created for. He tells us what the mainstream media won't tell us. Thank you for that. And Elaine says, in relation to Owen Smith's so far failure to come on the show and face me in debate, well, be fair, George, I'd rather face the Prime Minister than face you. Thanks for that, Elaine. I think that was a compliment. Robert's on the line from Manchester. Go ahead, Robert.
All right, mate. You couldn't shed any light on what I'm going through, could you?
What's what you're going through?
Chilcott report.
You're reading it, you mean?
No, I'm the actual report itself, the second report. Not the genuine one, the other one.
No, I'm not following you here, Robert.
With, attempted murder, really.
That you should be seeking advice. Let's go to Damien in Brighton. Go ahead, Damien.
Good evening, George.
Good evening to you.
George, we spoke last week, and I wondered out loud what depths that the plotters would sink to in their attempt to topple Jeremy Corbyn. Now, tonight on your show, Owen Smith's surrogate, Jenny Chapman, answered that question. And I've got to be honest, George, I had shivers running down my spine.
It kind of takes your breath away.
Well,
I'm replaying it back in my head. It was pretty extreme.
George, you gave her the opportunity to not go down that road. Now, to hear Jenny Chapman use the murder of Joe Cox to score cheap political points was obscene. Now, if this is the kind of campaign that Owen Smith is planning on...
And this is only day 2, Damien.
Exactly, George. We've only just begun. And if this is the kind of campaign that he's going to run, then he'd obviously be better off withdrawing and not debating the Labour Party. But let's leave that to one side because it's absolutely despicable.
Well, there's going to be no Labour Party left at the end of this. That's the truth of it. If this is day 2, and if it's a mathematical progression, then whatever the result at the end of this, the Labour Party as we knew it is no longer going to exist.
Well, it makes one wonder whether the scorched earth policy... Owen Smith, let's be honest, George, Owen Smith knows that he's going to be at the receiving end of a massive thumping from the membership of the Labour Party.
Well, unless they rig the voting public that have got a right to vote.
Well, yes, there is that.
They did try that, but 181,000 people joined at £25 in 2 days.
Which brings me on to my other point. So that's the negative stuff. We'll leave the negative stuff to Owen Smith. Now, we've already covered this. Under Jeremy Corbyn, Labour's won every by-election. It's increased its share of the vote in local elections. It's won every mayoral election. There's been more Conservative U-turns in the last 10 months than in the entire last Parliament. So we knew all that, George. But there was one thing that we didn't know, and I don't want to monetarise Mr Corbyn. However, he's just raised, in 48 hours, £4 million for the Labour Party. I mean, no one's heard of Owen Smith, so they're not...
They're not joining for him.
They're not joining for him. So not only does Mr Corbyn enhance the electability of the party and provide effective opposition, he is also an incredible fundraising asset for the party. I mean, I can't understand why we're even having a leadership election, to be honest, George.
Well, if I were Jeremy Corbyn, that would have been the first point that I would have made in launching my campaign yesterday. I would have said, I don't actually know why I'm here. I'm already the leader. I was elected less than a year ago with a landslide majority. Why am I being challenged in a way that can only be utterly destructive and utterly self-destructive for the people who are launching this coup?
Exactly. And the other thing, of course, George, is that we've been lectured by these people on the right wing of the party. Then when they had the option to choose Angela Eagle, now you can say what you like about her, but she's a decent person. You know, I think that she does her best. She's a competent, intelligent person. And they decided instead to choose over Angela Eagle a farmer lobbyist spiv who thinks that he's normal. So what's implicit in that is that other people aren't.
Yeah.
And so
and all the while flying the flag of feminism.
Precisely.
The candidate who pushed out the only woman in the race is trying to claim the ground of feminism and putting women up, as Jenny Chapman did, to declare their feminism whilst supporting a man against a woman.
George, Owen Smith's whole, his whole entering into this competition, it's a complete farce. He's an absurd candidate, and he's going to be...
Somebody called him a half-pumped-up Peter Sellers. I think that is just the perfect. For those of a certain age. We know exactly what that means.
Perfect. Owen Smith's a joke, let's be honest.
Damien, thanks for the call. Let's go to Scott, who's on a mobile. I don't know where. Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, George. Nice to speak to you. I'm asking. I hope my line's a bit better.
It is, yeah, it's good. Thanks a lot, Scott. Go ahead.
I was just wanting to make a couple of points on the Corbyn coup. I mean, I've always kind of had an interest in politics, but my apathy seems to get the better of me most of the time. I've been pretty fatalist. I've always admired folk like yourself, people that stand out like yourself and Dennis Skinner, Tony Benn, and lately Mary Black. But the main thing that made me take notice of the Labour Party again was the tireless, holy jumper attitude of Jeremy Corbyn. Because in my opinion, since I've been voting since I was 18, I'm nearly almost 50. My goodness, I can't believe that. But it goes round, it goes round, it goes round, and nothing changes. And the Labour right just now, I think, and it's always been the case, they want power for power's sake, not for change. But Jeremy Corbyn, he doesn't just want to change the country. He wants if he gets elected to be Prime Minister, to be a starting point for changing, it sounds crazy, but for changing the world. But you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
This is the thing, you have to start. There has to be a starting point for somebody to go, look.
I'll tell you what, though, Scott, they say that he's unelectable. That's, of course, the reverse of the truth. They're terrified that he might be electable. And if he was elected, everything would change. The lobbying culture, the presence of these big multinational drug companies feasting on the National Health Service, the railways would be brought back into public ownership. There'd be no more wars, no more invasions, no more occupations of other people's countries. That would be a very, very big change, and that's what they're scared of.
A very, very big change, George. And as I said to you last week, I don't think we'll ever have the land of milk and honey. But even to have a quarter of the land of milk and honey would be fantastic. To me, the politics, you know yourself. You've been down there for years. You know what goes on. There are voices in suits.
Yeah.
And that's it.
You've got it. You've summed it up. Your line was a bit better, but still a bit shaky. But your message was loud and clear. Thanks, Scott, for that call. If you want to join in this show, it's 0844 499 1000. You call us, we'll call you right back. You can also text us for 25p, I should say, plus your normal sending charge to 87222, or you can tweet at Talk Radio, at George Galloway, and I'll get through as many of those as I can, as I will now proceed to do, because there's one in particular I want to focus on. Somebody called Jonathan Burge has tweeted the following: George, you should meet some of the brave soldiers you're so quick to accuse. ISIS is the enemy, fool! Exclamation mark. Now, Jonathan, if you're a man at all, you'll pick up the phone and you'll dial 0844 499 1000 to justify the outrageous comment that I've just read out from you on Twitter. First of all, I have accused no soldier, neither brave nor otherwise. I have never accused any of our soldiers, brave or otherwise. One of the main reasons why I opposed the war was so that our soldiers would not be sent to their deaths or to their mutilation by lying, crooked politicians who talked them into war on an entirely false prospectus. And secondly, do you think that you need to tell me that ISIS is the enemy? Do you even listen to what I say? Do you read what I write? Do you think that I need you to tell me how evil, how satanic ISIS is? And as for me being a fool, why don't you phone me up and we'll have a discussion and the country can listen to who is the fool, you or me. Kevin Hughes says, I think Owen Smith will fly whatever flag of convenience that will further his own agenda. Yes, indeedy, Kevin Hughes. Yes, indeedy. This is George Galloway on Talk Radio, the mother of all talk shows.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
On Talk Radio, we'll get you talking.
Listen up, comrades of the world. Unite! He's a weapon of mass discussion, and he's back on your radio.
Get ready for a revolutionary rumble on your radio with the original George of the political jungle.
Galloway, celebrate the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway. Come have a go if you think you're hard enough. Get it? On the radio station that gives power to the people.
Talk Radio, we'll get you talking.
0844 499 1000. We're talking about the coup in the Labour Party. We're talking about the mass shooting in Munich. And later we'll be talking about Donald Trump. Now, wouldn't that be a mass shooting in the waiting? Well, there's everything to stay tuned for.
He's a weapon of mass discussion, and he's back on your radio. The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
On Talk Radio, we'll get you talking.
We will get you talking, but you need to call in 0844 499 1000. You call us, we'll call you back. Now, last week, not quite at this time, maybe an hour later than this, while I was broadcasting on the air, a military coup began in Turkey. I'm rather pleased, looking back at the wisdom with which I greeted the news. I told you it was serious, that it wasn't a lone gunman, wasn't a deranged soldier on the loose, when it's helicopters and aircraft in the sky attacking government targets and Parliament itself. It's a real coup. I also told you that millions of Turkish people hate Erdogan. Matter of fact, I hate him myself. But millions of Turkish people do not hate him, and millions of them love him. And more millions of Turkish people hate the idea of a military dictatorship. After all, they don't have to look in their crystal ball as to what that looks like. They can read the book. In my own lifetime, there have been at least 3, maybe 4 military governments, juntas, dictatorships in Turkey, as indeed there was in the neighbouring country of Greece. One of my first political campaigns was against the military dictatorship in Greece. So the people of that region know very well what military juntas are like, what they do. They promise to make the trains run on time, and they end up in the torture chambers, pulling people's fingernails out. And, of course, they don't even make the trains run on time. I stayed up all night last Friday night watching this coup. I was active on Twitter. I predicted that the Turkish people would move in their millions and confront the military forces that had moved on to the bridges and around the main public buildings. I predicted that the people would triumph, and indeed they did, and I didn't fall asleep until that was no longer seriously in doubt. I did tell you that I don't approve of President Erdogan, but then he doesn't need my approval. He's the president of Turkey. But many important issues have arisen in the 7 days since the coup. Is another coup underway? 3-month state of emergency? Will it be continued beyond 3 months? And what will happen now to democracy in Turkey? I'm glad to say that we are joined by Mehmet Erman Erol, who's recently finished his PhD on Turkish political economy at the University of York, and who I've heard before, and he did a very good job, which is why he's back on here tonight. Mehmet, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello, George. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Tell us, please, first of all, the likelihood, as Erdogan says, that this coup was organized by a political exile living in Pennsylvania in the United States by the name of Fethullah Gulen. Is that likely to be the whole truth, or a half-truth, or a complete untruth?
Well, I mean, although it has been a week since last Friday's coup attempt, we still don't know who is, exactly behind the coup.
Mehmet, the line is too poor. We're going to call you back, so don't go away. Just hang up now until we get a clearer line. Mega Monster says Owen Smith only appears on BBC and Sky, where he can spout dishonest BS unopposed. Well, I'm going to keep chasing him until he comes on. I can give you that assurance. There's no hiding place from me. And if he doesn't come on, he'll regret it. He might regret it if he does come on, but he'll regret it more if he doesn't come on, because I'll be at his heels every day, every hour, over the next 8 weeks. James Clark says, unfortunately, this is why the overground coup plotters will stop at nothing. They have no low that they won't stoop to.
Thank you, bye.
And Simon James says, I think New Labour has adopted a scorched earth policy, neoliberalism or bust. Mehmet, you're back on the line and it's much more clear. You got my question, yeah? Shall I reframe it?
I'm actually, I can go. Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air. You were on the air, but you've disappeared. I think we're going to have to call you back again. We do want to follow up on the coup in Turkey because it's not only vital for a great country, Turkey, with a huge population, 90 million Turks, a very powerful and rich economy on the border of Europe and on the border of the Middle East, and in particular on the border of Iraq and Syria. It's also on the border of Russia. And therefore, for all those reasons, what happens in Turkey is of enormous interest and moment for us. Third time lucky, Mehmet, our academic from the University of York, who's just completed a PhD on Turkish political economy. I hope that we can talk to him clearly this time. Mehmet, let me rephrase my first question. President Erdogan says this coup was got up by a political exile, Turkish political exile, living in the United States, Fethullah Gulen. Is that true, in your opinion? Half true, or not true at all?
This looks like the most likely scenario, especially considering the events following the fallout of these two allies back in 2012, 2013. So after 2013, following the corruption scandal, which Erdogan presented as a coup organized by Gülenists within the bureaucracy, in the aftermath of the corruption scandal, Erdogan tried to cleanse all the elements of Gülenists in the bureaucracy. So this was a clash, intra-Islamist clash, was going on in the last 3 years. And at some point it was expected, actually, that the revenge, if you like, would come back from Gülenists. Because the army was the only institution that was not cleansed from Gülenists. So that sounds the most likely scenario. But I would go for the second option. This is half true. Because it does not sound very plausible that these high-ranking generals, all of them, will be belonging to the Fethullah Gülen movement, actually. So apparently there was a coalition or a sort of a cooperation between some dissidents of Erdogan within the army, not necessarily Gülenists, and also the Gülenist themselves. But I think that was executed by the Gülenists. I mean, they were the main organizers of that, but they were able to find some allies within the army, although I would think they were to a great extent insignificant.
Okay. Now we're in agreement. We're in agreement so far. So let me move on to my second point. I want to put it to you that Gülen, living in exile in the United States, in Pennsylvania, could not possibly have half organized a coup, never mind wholly organized a coup, without the knowledge of the United States government and its intelligence services. Ergo, the United States must have been involved, in at very least passively, by not warning their ally, NATO ally, and political ally in the region that such a coup was coming.
I mean, I would not exclude, for example, or rule out totally the role of imperialism in terms of reshaping the region. And if you consider the tensions between the United States and Turkey in recent years, or if you like, the volatile relations between these two countries, that might sound a possibility. And also, there are some rumors, for example, the United States administration first had a position wait and see, and then they didn't show a reaction until it was more or less certain that the coup was failing.
No, definitely. NATO didn't speak for 7 hours. NATO said nothing for 7 hours.
Yes, I mean, but to be honest, this could be again a scenario. Maybe they try to understand what's going on. We do not have sufficient information to prove that. But as I said, I would not rule out the role of imperialism. But at the same time, if you think the form of the coup, it was like a suicide attempt, bomb the parliament and also kill the civilians. That such an military coup attempt never happened in Turkey. So things are a bit still uncertain, I have to say. But to be honest, we need to watch the relationships between the United States and Turkey in the context of, for example, Turkey's demand of deportation or extradition of Fethullah Gülen. So how the United States would react to that, we have to see. We have to see the future tensions.
Yeah, the United. I'll tell you now that there is absolutely no possibility of Gülen being extradited from the United States to Turkey, because he has too much to say. He'd have an accident on the way to the airport rather than see him in a court in Turkey, where his only remaining card would be to reveal the extent of the plot with the United States. But just because of shortage of time, why should Erdogan now continue to follow the policies of the United States in the region if he knows that his friends in the United States were trying to kill him?
Yes, it is a difficult question to answer, but I think if you think the policy stance of Erdogan and the recent foreign policy shift the Turkish government introduced, for example, try to fix the relationship with Russia, and also there are some declarations by the Turkish government members saying that we need to normalize the relationship with Syrian government as well. And they were trying to play again an active role and in the region. So I think Turkey before 2015 tried to play a role in the region which was not actually fitting its political capabilities or economic power. So this idea of neo-Ottoman foreign policy, shaping the region in an Islamist way. So I think that was not stemming from the power of Turkey. There was just a discourse. And then they understood actually now that they cannot pursue this sort of policies without enough economic and political power, especially thinking that the Turkish growth decreased dramatically after 2008-9. It's only 3-4%, quite high compared to Western standards, but as a country like Turkey, it's quite low. And so I don't have any definite answer to that question.
It's going to be worth watching. It's going to be worth watching, though.
Yes. I have to say, and the Erdogan government was quite a pragmatic government, and they always seek for flexible policy options, and they would looking for the balance of forces within the region as well. So they cannot rule out the role of the United States in that region either.
Last question. What does all of this mean for the Kurdish minority in Turkey? There was a peace process. It's broken down. The war then laid waste. There are places in Turkey that look like Aleppo. Is the war against the Kurdish people going to intensify, or will he return to the track of negotiation and a peace process?
I do not expect the latter. I would expect the former. And state of emergency now declared for 3 months. And yesterday, President Erdogan said they might extend it to another 3 months, for 6 months. And, for example, they also suspended the European Convention on Human Rights in Turkey the other day as part of the declaration of state of emergency. These periods, I mean, the suspension of democratic rights, are the worst periods for the Kurdish people, as we have seen in the past as well. So I think that we should expect a further repression. To confront that, I think all progressive forces within the society of Turkey need to unite and should not leave the Kurdish question to this government. So I think we should expect the latter, and we need to unite and find solutions to that sort of operation and further authoritarianism, which might wait for us.
Thank you, Mehmet. Erman Erol just finished his PhD on Turkish political economy, talk us through the aftermath, the aftershocks of the coup last week.
Controversial conversation and cutting-edge current affairs comment with the notorious B.I.G.G. The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio. Listen, this guy's a nightmare. He's not a great guy, folks.
Well, that was the putative President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump. It's quite a good impression of him, I must say. We are touring the horizon tonight. We're talking, of course, about Munich, and we'll keep you updated. More news on the news about that. And we'll also be, I think, going back to Germany. If you're in Germany and listening to this, then you're very welcome to call us 0844 499 1000. You may say it's ambitious of me to think that there are people listening to this show in Germany, in which case I should introduce you to the next caller, Sean in Dallas, Texas, in the United States. Sean, how wonderful to hear from you.
Likewise, George. It's a great pleasure to be on your show, and I'm happy to hear that you're back on the air. So much has happened, and it's good to finally talk to you again.
It's a joy, and John Le Boutillier, our man in the United States, will be up later, so it's a reunion of our old clans across the ocean. Let me get your take as a layman. Of course, John Le Boutillier is himself a politician, a Republican Party congressman, but with a wonderful open mind on all these things. I said earlier in my talk-up, my introduction, that the United States politics, and especially conventions, are normally a circus, but the Republican convention was off the map. It was off the scale. It was a house of horrors. Is that how you saw it? And more importantly, how did the people who live around you in Texas see it?
Well, I'm in a certain part of Texas that's not representative of Texas. If you want to talk about that, you have to talk about, there's two different Texases. There's Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. Then there's the rest of Texas, and most of us live in the metropolitan areas. So that's two different questions, depending on what part of Texas you're in. But, you know, my take on it is roughly it's something similar that you see going all around the Western world. You know, what it is, it's white backlash. If you look at the numbers, the polling numbers, if it was only white people in this country, Donald Trump would be elected. He has 50 to 60% of the white vote, pretty conservative estimates. And this is not something new. You know, let's say David Duke, when he ran, you know, he was, I don't know how familiar you are with him. He's a neo-Nazi.
He's a neo-Nazi, yeah.
Yeah.
He's now running for Senate.
More accurate.
He's now running
Yeah,
for Senate in the South somewhere. I saw that just this evening.
Yeah. Well, you see, when he first ran, he would have been elected had it not been for brown and black people and people of color. They saved, you know, the basically people of color saved his state. And it's a similar thing right now. I mean, it is white backlash. That's what Trump is. It's, you know, against Mexicans and blacks and Muslims. And you know, I know it's uncomfortable, but it raises a lot of questions about white culture. You know, typically people are like, you know, where are the people of color to call out where are the leaders of the, you know, black community to call this out? Well, where are the leaders of the white community to call this out? This is a problem with white culture, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. It's white people who are racist and bigoted and homophobic and all the rest, and they use code words to get around it, and their attitudes are pretty crazy. They think slavery was justified. They have, you know, it's just truly backwards. I live around some of these people, and it's bad. It's pretty bad. I don't think he's going to get elected, but that he's even a contender is frightening.
Yes. Somebody said in the British media today that Donald Trump has the support of white blue-collar workers, the KKK, and the National Rifle Association, the gun lobby. Ordinarily, that wouldn't be enough to win an election, but it's still a hell of a lot of people. Do you see it that way?
Yes, but he's, you know, it's sure, I agree, but he's got more than that. You know, it's not just those. Has he got a significant, educated, middle-class white support? That's the thing. When you study the polls, George, his support among educated white people goes down tremendously. And for every so many, you know, people who are coming out of college, he loses support. It's like 0.65. I forget the numbers. Yeah. He loses a lot of support, and you know, it is it's I'm sorry to say, but it's a modern white culture, and you know, it's pretty racist. And I also, before you let me go, I wanted to say something about the Turkish situation.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Well, I want to say that, you know, I know you probably think I'm Irish. I'm a quarter Irish. My real name isn't Sean. I'm half Iranian as well.
Okay.
I'm an atheist.
I did think you were an Irish Catholic. So go ahead.
No, I'm a quarter Mexican, a quarter Irish, and a half Iranian. And one thing I think that would be nice to see in the Middle East, and it's just a pipe dream, is that there could be some sort of unity. I think that, unfortunately, it would need to be based around ethnic grounds. And there'd have to be a lot of changes because, you know, a lot of Persian people, even that term, they have a lot of pride. A lot of it, I think, is kind of white supremacist in of nature. They look down upon Arab people. And then there's a chauvinism in each little place. But these chauvinisms allow the place to be divided. The Middle East is the place I'm referring to, divided and conquered and ruled by foreign powers, and I say it's time to just give it up, you know. And Turkey, Iran, and Egypt should be, you know, in alignment. I'm sorry, go on.
No, you're singing from my hymn sheet on that. That's for sure, Sean. Are you still in College Station, Texas?
Oh no, I've never in College Station.
That's what used to come up. That's what used to come up on the phone. Where are you then?
The enemies, I say, the rivals. I'm calling you from a small town north of Dallas.
How wonderful.
Yeah, about 40 miles north of Dallas.
How wonderful. So it's great that you're listening. Even better that you're calling in.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate it. Sean in Dallas in Texas, showing just the international reach of the mother of all talk shows. We are talking later to John Le Boutillier about the situation in the United States, about the Republican convention and the race for the presidency that will soon be officially fully underway, but of course it's been underway for a very long time. We're keeping our eye on the breaking news in Munich, and we'll keep you up to date, of course, with that. And we're talking about the coup against Jeremy Corbyn, and it's all here on Talk Radio.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway
on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Now, coming up after me is the terrific broadcaster Ian Lee, and you can also tune in to The Unexplained with Howard Hughes this Sunday at 10 p.m. Howard talks to Louise Harrison, George Harrison's sister, about spirituality, and Professor Max Abrams explains his research into the psychology of terrorist groups. That's The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. What a wonderful name. Sunday at 10 p.m. and only on Talk Radio. Now, I've got to throw to some audio now. Maximilian Belfield is in Munich and was waiting for a train with his girlfriend when the shootings began.
Suddenly, everybody started to run, started to cry, and heavily armed policemen were passing by, and everybody was basically crying and shouting, and was complete chaos.
And the here today, gone tomorrow U.S. President Barack Obama has also been speaking about the shooting in Munich, although, frankly, there's a shooting like this in the United States every other day. Let's hear what he said.
Our hearts go out to those who may have been injured. Germany is one of our closest allies, so we are going to pledge all the support that they may need in dealing with these circumstances.
Well, that was President Obama. His thoughts and prayers are always going out to people involved in shooting incidents. They're usually in the United States. On this occasion, he's talking about Munich, where it seems certain, at least, that 5 people have died. There will be many more injured. And it is still the case that the 3 gunmen have not been apprehended, and therefore the possibility of still further murder and mayhem is definitely a real possibility, maybe even, dreadful though it is to say, a probability. At the very least, when they catch them, they're probably going to have to kill them. So that's at least 3 more deaths that we can expect in the course of the evening. But of course, the potential for wide-scale killing continues as long as these 3 gunmen, who seem to be acting in concert, remain at large. Now, of course, we're talking also about the United States. We're talking about the United States where, as we've just heard from an old-time caller, Sean in Dallas in Texas, where the cusp of widespread civic violence appears ever closer. Scarcely a day goes by when a black person is not shot to death by a white policeman. Some black people have taken to shooting dead white police officers and other police officers for that matter. The precariousness of the situation in the United States is pretty clear. And yet they continue to be involved in projecting violence around the world and interfering in other people's affairs. I would have thought that an American government, an American president, would have been far more attentive to his own country's problems. But we'll be talking to John Le Boutillier about that in the course of the rest of the show, which is another 90 minutes or so, 85 minutes or so. And we'll be talking, of course, about the Jeremy Corbyn coup, the recap I think I need to make. Just 10 months ago, Jeremy Corbyn won a landslide victory over front-rank opponents, people who were household names: Andy Burnham, Yvette Cooper, Liz Kendall perhaps a little less so, but front-rank, experienced politicians who'd been in cabinets and been in governments. And Jeremy Corbyn beat them all, and by a landslide. Now he's facing a challenge just 10 months later, for no discernible reason, at least not any honest discernible reason, and a great effort has been made to change the nature of the electorate. Hundreds of thousands of people have joined the Labour Party in the run-up to Corbyn's victory and its aftermath. 181,000 people joined the Labour Party in just 2 days of this week at £25 a head, which is something quite phenomenal. To put it into perspective, more people joined the Labour Party in 48 hours this week than the total membership of the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats put together. It is, the Labour Party under Corbyn, the biggest Labour Party that there has ever been. It's bigger than it has ever been in its 116-year history. It is the biggest Labour Party, Social Democratic Party, in the entire world, and it is growing and growing and growing. And they say its leader is a failure, a man who has built the biggest Labour Party in the world, a man who can recruit in 2 days more people than are in the Tory and Liberal Democrat parties combined. They say that he can't win elections, except that he's won every election that he has fought. There have been 4 parliamentary by-elections. Corbyn's Labour Party has won every single one of them, all but one of them, in an increased majority, a swing to Labour, of between 5 and 8%. The only by-election, the only one, where there was not an increase in the Labour majority, was next door to Owen Smith. Owen Smith says that one of the reasons why Corbyn has to be challenged is because of the results of the EU referendum. But Owen Smith's own constituency voted decisively to leave the European Union. So how Jeremy Corbyn is to be blamed for that, rather than their own Member of Parliament, Owen Smith, is very, very difficult to understand. And Mr. Smith stood in the neighbouring constituency of Blaenau Gwent and was heavily defeated before getting the seat that he currently represents now. And he also lost that seat to an independent before winning it back for Labour. So he has a checkered record in terms of electoral success. Jeremy Corbyn, on the other hand, has been elected with ever larger majorities in his constituency of Islington North ever since 1983. So, if it comes to winning elections, I'll argue that Jeremy Corbyn is better than almost anyone else at winning elections. Of course, it's true that he might not win the general election, but neither did the last guy. Neither did the guy before the last guy. Neither did the guy before that. Yet Kinnock, who lost 2 elections, is lecturing Corbyn, who hasn't yet been given a chance to fight 1 general election. Gordon Brown is lecturing Jeremy Corbyn about elections when Gordon Brown has never won a single general election and sat as Prime Minister, afraid to go to the country and face the country in a general election when he should have done. And Ed Miliband, do I have to say any more than just the name Ed Miliband? Epic failure. Yet he too is lecturing Jeremy Corbyn on the issue of elections. So it's a pretty unedifying business. Now, I've got lots of tweets and texts and so on to read to you after this.
Big Georgie Galloway's back on the radio!
Galloway, celebrate. The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio.
It is indeed the mother of all talk shows. That's why I need your calls. 0844 499 1000. That's the number to call. You call us, we'll call you back. But hey, it's Friday night, so there must be a crisis going on somewhere, and there's only David Spencer and me that can keep you up to date on it. David, this time last week, almost exactly, we were talking about a military coup in Turkey, and now we're talking about another lamentable turn with blood on the streets, this time of a great German city. What can you tell us?
Well, I just actually, George, been listening to a press conference in Munich from the police in the last couple of minutes where some of the details that have been emerging early on have been clarified. What we now know, the police have said 5 people have been killed in this shooting in a shopping centre in Munich, not 6 as previously reported. A Facebook statement from police seems to contradict the numbers, but the police statement, the press conference they just held, 5 people dead, several injured. Can't put a number on the people injured because there will be a number of people injured. They also describe how obviously a lot of people have been traumatised, so they kind of count that as injuries as people were escaping the shopping centre. Everyone is now out of that shopping centre in Munich, we understand, but the gunmen still on the loose. They are hunting for 3 men still on the run in Munich. All of the city's transport systems have been shut down. There was an earlier report of a separate shooting at a metro station in Munich. That has now been played down. That was a hoax. What we understand from the shooting is that it started in a restaurant. There were some shots fired in the restaurant inside this shopping centre, and then some shots fired outside. The extra police have been drafted into the area. If you can see some of the pictures that are emerging, obviously on the news channels and obviously online as well. A huge police presence there now. Extra police being drafted in from Austria as well, because it's very close to the border, about 42 odd miles away from the Austrian border. So extra backup. George, lots of videos emerging. As you can imagine, a shopping centre, it's sort of place where people obviously are out and about doing their daily shopping, their normal, living their lives as normal, and then they capture some of this on video. So there's a lot of videos emerging online, one of which is from a window overlooking the top of a sort of car park next to the shopping centre. Seems to be the roof of the building, and there's an exchange in the video from the person filming and the person who's strolling about, pacing up and down at the top of this building. We believe one of the gunmen, and the person filming is shouting, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" A lot of swearing in this, obviously in German, but the exchange having been translated, we understand the reply is that it's a local man saying, "I am German, I've grown up in this area," and then something about foreigners. Very early to speculate about who might be behind this. Obviously, people will jump to the conclusion that people like IS might be behind this. So some of the videos may be suggesting that might not be the case here.
Germany has, of course, well, we don't even have to go into its history, but it has a contemporary problem of far-right extremism, and using the presence of large numbers of immigrants and refugees, especially in Bavaria, where they come from the Balkans through Austria into Germany. So I'm not that shocked at what you've just said. Is it, as far as you can see, because you're able to watch the pictures, I haven't been, is it a Bataclan type situation? Are they still firing, or have they, as it were, gone on the lam?
Well, I think the suggestions would be very much the latter. And obviously with an IS attack, and as we saw in Nice, if you're a sympathiser to that, you're willing to die for the cause far more obviously. If, as we think, there could be a far-right element with this, certainly from that exchange, that this video that's just emerged, that wouldn't be so much the case, and you would then go on the run. It appears, from what the police have just been saying, is they're still hunting for these 3 men. We're not sure, from what they said, whether they're in and around the shopping complex, because it's a huge area. It's not far from the Olympic Stadium in Munich, if anyone has been to that area, and whether they would have got away and escaped nearby. But that would be the case that we think that they're on the run. They were seen with rifles. There are some pictures.
I was going to ask you that. Are they long arms? Are they automatic weapons?
Yeah, it appears to be described as rifles, but the number of shots fired and from the restaurant and then outside would suggest that it's not quite like the Westgate shopping centre attack, which was the Al-Shabaab attack in Nairobi a few years ago, where they were inside the complex for hours.
And had seized it and intended to die there.
Exactly.
This doesn't seem to be like that.
It doesn't seem to be similar, but as I say, early on, very difficult to clarify a lot of these reports, and there was a lot of confusion early on, but certainly very sinister video of this. When you see someone in that position holding a weapon and sort of while they're strolling up and down, you can tell that they're angst, but they're able to have an exchange with someone. It's quite surreal to watch this, but yeah, from this exchange that's been videoed, it would be suggesting I grew up in this local area, and then something about foreigners. So we're trying to get more of these details over the next hour or so. I expect more of those details will emerge.
Well, keep us posted, David, please. If there's any further big developments, please come back, and because I think the listeners valued our exchanges last week when it was Turkey. Tonight it's Germany. God knows where it will be.
I'm not been booked on any more Fridays, I think.
Well, maybe it's us. Maybe we're hexing the whole thing. God forbid that we ever have to sit here and discuss events like these happening in our own country, in our own capital, although the security services are very clear that such an event is, and I quote, highly likely. Let's get through some of the backlog of tweets and texts. Super Reaper says the Democratic Convention is going to be a house of mirrors, making reflections appear different from what they really are. And Alan McHugh says he might have a point, as Jeremy couldn't do the fake sincerity of Blair with his People's Princess Diana speech. No, that's a fair point. Jeremy's not that kind of person, and I think the country's had enough of that kind of person. Tony Blair was that kind of a person. David Cameron was that kind of a person. I don't believe either, actually, that Theresa May is, or that Jeremy Corbyn is. And one of the reasons why I'm against Owen Smith becoming the leader of the Labour Party is that he looks to me not so much, as I said earlier, as a half-pumped-up Peter Sellers, though he does physically resemble that and speak that way too, but a half-baked Tony Blair. Balder the Brave says Owen Smith is just another Tony Blair character. That's why Labour rebels prefer him over Eagle. The other Harry Cole says, and the lords and ladies have made an easy living, afflicting poverty and humiliation, perpetuating inequality. Lil Leah says, innocent people die in Syria, nothing's on the news, but anything happens in the West and there are days of headlines. Well, let me just say on that if it turns out that this is not, for a change, another Islamist, fanatic, extremist act of mass murder, but an act of German far-rightists, I suspect it won't be in the news for all that long, but we'll see. Enrico Tortolano says, be honest, you wouldn't back Owen Smith in a one-horse race, would you? Well, that's a good point, because the bookies have more or less closed the betting already. It's 1-5 on for Jeremy Corbyn. That means you need to put £5 on to win 1. And a new book has opened on what the margin of Jeremy Corbyn's victory would be. There are only 2 caveats I'd make to that. If that's really how wide the gap is, that begs the question of why these people are doing it. Are they really doing it with a hope of winning, or are they doing it as a precursor to something else, some kind of breakaway, some kind of new political formation arising out of this? So, let's go to the lines. I've talked long enough. Michael's been waiting, and he's in Leeds. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hi, George. You all right?
By the grace of God, I'm good. I'd like to hear your views on what we're talking about tonight.
That's good. Yeah, it was just a couple of general points, really. I just wanted to say that I've been listening to you for some time, and although I don't agree with everything, like, I have a lot of respect for you. I think you're a great speaker and everything.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
I just wanted to get your opinion on a couple of things. First of all, like, after the referendum, I felt that although the Prime Minister called for the referendum and everything, ultimately it was our decision. So what do you think about his decision to resign?
Well, it was inevitable because the loss of political stature was complete. And in the days that have elapsed since, it's clear, as the House of Commons Select Committee very, very condemnatory it was, said that he was guilty of gross negligence because he had made no preparation whatsoever for a Brexit vote. And I think that would have been untenable for David Cameron to continue. What I'm more upset about is that we now have a Prime Minister who was elected by just 199 people, because that's the number of people who voted for her in what turned out to be the final ballot. Even the members of the Conservative Party, few as they are, didn't get a say on this, never mind the British people. Now, when Theresa May said to Gordon Brown that you have no right to sit as Prime Minister without seeking a mandate from the British people, she was right about that. And, of course, that also now applies to her. Go ahead.
Yeah, I probably agree with you on that, and perhaps, we should call for a general election to give the people their say, but I wanted to argue that perhaps, David Cameron stepping down after ultimately it was our choice to make, he could be seen to let down some of the people who voted him in.
Well, I think he was glad to get out of it. He'll be glad to get on the money trail. I don't expect that he will stay beyond the next general election, might not even stay in Parliament until the next general election. Because, you see, one of the things about being a member of Parliament is that you have to register all your income. And we already know from the Panama Papers, Dave's not too keen on that. Likes to keep things, his cards a bit too close to his chest. So if he now goes on what I expect to be a highly lucrative career in business, where all the people that he helped in his time in office will be keen to offer him remunerative employment, he won't want to register that in Parliament for any longer than he has to. Last point from you, Mike.
Yeah, there was just one final point I wanted to make. You've discussed at length the whole thing with the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn and everything.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to say, I remember a time not so long ago when you'd have parties which represented everybody from, say, the Socialist Party, the Green Party, all the way through to the BNP, and I strongly believe that that's the way it should be. I mean, I'd say that, I voted for Conservative last time round myself, but I strongly believe that in a truly democratic society, there should be parties and politicians to represent everyone. So when you go to vote and put your mark on the ballot, you have someone to vote for.
And we need a fair voting system so that you're not wasting your vote. You're getting a proportional representation of what the actual state of play in the country is.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think for Jeremy Corbyn to stay in and weather the storm would be great for the Labour Party, because it'd pull it back to the left where it should be to represent those voters who stand for...
You're a clever man, Michael, and I'm glad that you shared that with us here on the radio this evening. Every country needs a Labour Party, whether you like it or not, whether you want to vote for it or not, it's entirely your decision. But every country needs a Labour Party, and that needs, therefore, for the party to be Labour.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Listener comrades of the world, unite! He's a weapon of mass discussion, and he's back on your radio.
Get ready for a revolutionary rumble on your radio with the original George of the political jungle.
Galloway, celebrate the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway. Come have a go if you think you're hard enough. Get it? On the radio station that gives power to the people.
Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Yes, the Top Cat is back every Friday night between 7 and 10 on Talk Radio. It's the mother of all talk shows. But I need your calls, 0844 499 1000, and your texts and your tweets at Talk Radio, at George Galloway.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway
on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Well, we have been talking, and so have you, by the various methods, text and email and Twitter, about all of these political issues that we've been discussing tonight. But I suppose if you think about it, the most globally significant is the subject that we're going to discuss mainly over the next 55 minutes or so, namely what's happening in the United States of America. It's election time. The parties have effectively chosen their candidates before they got to their conventions. Hillary Clinton's up next for the Democratic Party, but the week belonged to the trumpeters, the supporters, the family. You could almost describe it as a circus, a whole circus troupe of Trumps. There was Donald, there was the latest Mrs. Trump, there were the children, particularly the daughter, and they dominated the airwaves even here, and I suspect they did so in the United States also. It was a parade of, well, I'm almost tempted to call it a political freak show. We had a congressman saying from the rostrum that white people were superior to other people. We had mad men and women ranting about Muslims, about Mexicans, about blacks, about people of color. We had mad men and women exalting the proliferation of guns. We had mad men and women justifying the wave after wave of killings of black people in America by white police officers. We had people gearing up for, survivalists, gearing up for a future civil war in the United States. It was the Tea Party on crack. No one expected ever that the Republican Party could be worse than the Tea Party. And just before I go to a civilized American, an educated, eloquent, and frequently elected American from the Republican Party, our sage John Le Boutillier, I'm going to have to force him to listen to Donald Trump first.
Every day I wake up determined to deliver a better life for the people all across this nation that have been ignored, neglected, and abandoned. These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice. I have a message to every last person threatening the peace on our streets and the safety of our police. When I take the oath of office next year, I will restore law and order to our country. It's time to deliver a victory for the American people. We don't win anymore, but we are going to start winning again. The situation is worse than it has ever been before. This is the legacy of Hillary Clinton. Death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness. To all Americans tonight, in all of our cities and in all of our towns, I make this promise. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
Well, I said there was a Tea Party on crack. That was a pretty good example of what I meant. The hyperbolic, what would one call it, to be polite, populist message, warning to people in the United States, warning to the world that America's going to be great again. And what they mean by great is not necessarily what the rest of us would consider great. It is, in one sense, a ridiculous turn of affairs that such a man with such a crew could be carrying the great banner of Abraham Lincoln's party into a presidential election, is, on the face of it, ridiculous. But it's also dangerous because, as we all know, he's running against, if he's the most dangerous man in America, he's running against the most dangerous woman in America. If he's the most unpopular man in America, he's running against the most unpopular woman in America. And in that context, it is possible that he could win. And then I'm off to the South Island of New Zealand as possibly the only place in the whole world that will be safe. Maybe even my next guest, my sage, John Le Boutillier, might care to join me on the steamer down there. John, welcome to the show.
George, you and I probably don't agree on a lot politically, I don't know, but two great minds still think alike. I've already looked into 1-800-Qantas for a one-way flight to Auckland.
It might be the only safe place. Now, give me your view. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was the Republican Party convention for you?
8.5. I mean, it was really bad. It was bad on Monday. I think your listeners probably understand our system pretty well. We have electoral votes based on the size of each state, and you have to get 270 electoral votes to win the presidency. And so each party every 4 years decides where to have their convention in what state in hopes that that will help a little bit in that crucial state. So the Republicans picked Ohio to have their convention because we historically only win the presidency when we win the state of Ohio.
And it's a big electoral vote in Ohio, isn't it?
Yeah, big. And on Monday morning when the convention was beginning, Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, goes on TV at 6:15 in the morning and trashes the governor of Ohio, John Kasich, says he's an embarrassment to the state and that they're going to win Ohio anyway. Now, this is the Republican governor, who's a good guy, ran for president this year. He's a good guy. He lost. Okay, he lost. Trump, instead of being magnanimous, George, in victory, as you're supposed to be, is bitter and vicious and vindictive for the last 2.5 months towards John Kasich, and therefore never reached out and said, John, let's get together, let's talk, let's see if we can find common ground, the stuff you're supposed to do when you win towards the loser.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it, and Kasich never came to the convention in his home state. And then we find out on Monday that the Ohio delegation to the convention traditionally is seated in the front because they're the home state. The Trump people moved them to the back of the room, around to the right behind those silver columns, so those delegates never could even see the stage. Therefore, even though the convention is in Ohio, the Trump people basically said, screw you to Ohio, to the Ohio Republican Party, to John Kasich. How they think they're going to win the state when they've pissed off the leadership of the state who could have been enlisted to help them. That was the beginning of the convention, right?
Yeah. That's
and then
before,
it went downhill from there.
Before a ball was kicked. and then it went downhill from there, as you say. What were some of the highlights or lowlights for you?
Well, I know there's a certain amount of red meat in our conventions for the base of the party. I think it was entertaining for a minute, but it became ridiculous to talk about lock her up. And by the last night, we had people with handcuffs, Hillary masks on their face,
and handcuffs
walking around the floor of the convention. And that's on TV, and that's the image they want to project. Now, to me, I'm not that kind of Republican, George. I'm sorry. And I know you know that. Yeah. I'm a Reagan Republican. I believe in projecting an image of optimism, being nice to people, not having a chip on your shoulder. When the Reagans left the scene in 88, 89, and the Bushes came in, the entire character of the Republican Party has changed. It has become a sneering, chip on your shoulder, screw you party. The delegates reflect it. Many of the elected officials reflect it. I don't like it. It doesn't work. They're not winning, by the way. We've lost 5 out of the last 6 presidential elections in the popular vote. So it's not working.
Now, that all seems to indicate that Trump has made a complete takeover of the Republican Party, that there's nothing called the Republican National Committee. There's nothing like a bureaucracy that, for example, on those seating arrangements would have said, don't be stupid, the home state has to sit in the front, and so on. It would seem, therefore, that the takeover is complete. Is that so?
Half and half. The Republican National Committee has been taken over by Trump because the head of it, Reince Priebus, is a pathetic little guy who is looking for a job, frankly, and his term is running out, and so he has joined and been co-opted by the Trump campaign. So the Trump campaign has no money. Can you believe it? A so-called billionaire has no money. So they have to rely on the staff of the Republican National Committee to run their campaign, have people in the states distributing literature, all that stuff. There are no workers in the Trump campaign. But to answer the rest of your question, there is separate entities running the House of Representatives, that re-election group, and the U.S. Senate, the Republicans. They are separate. They don't like Trump. They're not part of Trump. They've not been co-opted by Trump. The House Re-election Committee and the Senate Re-election Committee, they are separate from Trump.
But there must be a real danger that their campaigns will be gravely damaged by association with his.
Well, that's why so few senators and congressmen even came to this convention. And many big-shot governors said, I'm not going to go. And 14 senators, I think, didn't go. And most of the ones up for, close re-elections this year, I'll give you a case in point. Rob Portman, this U.S. senator from Ohio, he also did not attend the convention in his home state for fear of that hurting him in November in his re-election.
Let's look ahead to the Democratic Party's convention. What can we expect out of that, John?
Well, first of all, later today or early tomorrow, she's going to pick her running mate, which I'm guessing most people seem to think it'll be Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia. Very affable, a non-threatening man, fluent in Spanish, by the way, which will help her among the Latino vote. They got to announce that and do that, and then the convention begins in Philadelphia.
Are there any other runners for that? Is he the pick?
The other guy is Tom Vilsack, the former governor of Iowa, who's now the current Secretary of Agriculture, a longtime friend of both Bill and Hillary Clinton, a good guy, a not exciting guy, but someone that Hillary could trust. Either one, Kaine or Vilsack, matches Mike Pence in the sense that they're not going to cause any trouble, and you're never going to hear from them again. They'll go off campaigning in obscure places. The entire focus is going to be on Trump and Hillary.
And how does that now currently look to you?
On the electoral map, it favors Hillary Clinton. But it's funny. If you could take Hillary out and put any other Democrat in her place, that Democrat would beat Trump easily by 10 points. If you take Trump out and put any other Republican in, they beat Hillary. But the two parties settled on the two worst candidates you've ever heard of.
Yeah. That's an extraordinary thing. Somebody said, finally, John, somebody said here in the British media, I heard it, that Trump is backed by poor, blue-collar, white workers,
correct,
by the KKK and people who think like them, and by the gun lobby.
That's true.
And that's not enough to win a presidential election. Is that finally your conclusion too?
Well, I just don't know how many disaffected whites there are that will come out and vote. And will the same amount of black turnout come out this year that came out for Obama in 2012? And then I think the key is the Latino vote. I think that they are registering to vote, George, to vote against Trump. And they are in states, they're growing as a percentage, in Virginia, North Carolina, obviously Florida. And in those states is where she has her chance to win. She's in trouble in Pennsylvania, Ohio, what we call the Rust Belt, the old manufacturing places where the factories were all shuttered and gone, and the workers are out of work. And that's Trump's hope, those places.
Yeah. The Latinos are going to be a majority in the U.S. by the mid-century, aren't they? And every 4 years, America becomes 2.4% less white in the sense that the other communities are growing. So we've had this conversation before. If the Republican Party continues to be a party for white, uneducated, less educated, more poor, embittered white people, it is by definition a party headed for the museum.
That's right. That's a dying party. And George, in the United States, 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago, we had a big influx of Irish and Italian immigrants, mostly into the New York area. And when they got here, they were obviously Catholic. When they got here, they were immediately recruited by the Democratic Party to help them and work with them, and then they would vote for the Democrats, and they did. By the second generation of Italians and Irish, and it's right where I live here in New York, many of them have become Republican. They are, because of their religion, they're socially more conservative than the Democratic Party became by 1972, say.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing once we get beyond Trump. The Republicans have a shot if they wake up, and they know this. We have to be recruiting the Latino vote on social issues, that we are more in tune with them than the Democratic Party is. But we have a long way to go. We got to get over Trump. I don't know that we'll get over Trump. Trump could be the death knell for what we call the Republican Party, and we may have to create a new party. Like the Whigs went out and the Republicans came in, the Republicans may have to go out and a new party be created.
What happened to the establishment? When this began, sadly, we were off the air, you and I, but when this began, you would have said that Jeb Bush, with the name, with the money, with the backing of the establishment, backing of business, big business and so on, that he would have easily been the candidate. And yet he was practically last. And a guy who, by the way, isn't publishing his tax affairs, not because he wants to hide his wealth, but because he wants to hide from us that he's not nearly as wealthy as he's always claimed to be, in my opinion. A guy who cannot possibly be the pick of big business, the successful, phenomenally developed American business class. They can't possibly have dreamt of a guy like Donald Trump as their standard bearer. What happened to the establishment, the blue chip Republicans?
We had two elections, 2010, where we won the House of Representatives on the pledge to repeal Obamacare, And then we won the House, did nothing about Obamacare. 2014, same thing all over again. U.S. Senate flips to the Republicans. They promised to get rid of Obamacare. We've had 2 elections where we've taken over the House and Senate and done nothing about Obamacare. That has destroyed the belief in the Republican base, in believing in the Republican establishment, the leadership, Boehner, now Ryan, McConnell in the Senate, the old lions like the Bushes, the Doles, all of them. They are reviled in the Republican Party now. It's amazing. They're not at the convention, and no one could care less. That's why we're seeing the death of the Republican Party. And it probably began in 2010 with the Tea Party coming along inside the Republican Party, running a revolution against spending by the Republicans. It wasn't just by Obama. It was George W. Bush and the Republican Congress driving up national debt, spending, creating new entitlements. That was just killed this party.
John, we're not going to go out of business as pundits on politics anytime
back together,
soon.
George.
John,
Together. In fact, we can even do this show from New Zealand.
We may have to. We may have to. By the grace of God, we're here and joined at the hip. Thanks very much, John Le Boutillier, our sage from the United States. I probably let that run too long, but I'm so fascinated by what John has to say and the way that he says it.
Call me have a go if you think you're hard enough. Get it? The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
3 gunmen still on the loose, 6 dead, many injured, many of those severely. The story in Munich in Germany will stretch out, I think, over many hours to come, and may have profound political significance and consequences inside Germany and amongst the populations of the European Union, particularly those areas where racial tensions have risen and risen and risen over these last few years. Jeremy Corbyn now has a battle on his hands. He would ordinarily win it with both hands tied behind his back, but those who are counting the votes, or rather those who are counting those who will be allowed to vote, are very much not in his hands. The General Secretary of the Labour Party is a full-on conspirator against the leader of the party. The Deputy Leader of the Labour Party is a full-on conspirator against the leader of the Labour Party, and by a wafer-thin majority they have begun the task now being carried out by their servants of weeding out as many voters as they possibly can so as to influence the result. I believe it will be a fruitless task. I believe that Jeremy Corbyn will win, and win convincingly. But let's hear what you want to say about that. 0844 499 1000. Let me read a couple of quick SMSs and tweets. Sorry, George, New Zealand will not be safe enough. I'm going to live with the emperor penguins in the South Pole, says Ray from London. It's a bit cold there, though, Ray. Lil Leah. No, I've read that one already. Let me go to the phone lines. Grant is in Alloa in Clackmannan in Scotland. Grant, welcome back.
Hi, George.
Hi there.
Good to be on again.
Yes, good to hear from you. Go ahead.
Well, this week, George, I've kind of got it's one that ties into a few points, and it's this kind of disgusting attitude in the House of Commons that you see from both sides, actually, both parties. With Theresa May's predecessor, David Cameron, used to make personal insults towards Jeremy Corbyn. Theresa May, as you saw on Wednesday, with her comparing Jeremy Corbyn to a bad boss. And then that kind of ties in to what I was going to say here, is that she kind of made out Jeremy Corbyn to be a bad boss, but I actually see him as the employee to the members. So he's serving us as the members and nobody within the Labour Party who has any right to kind of compare Jeremy Corbyn to being a bad boss, and then even ludicrously comparing him to being like the Sports Direct managers today, as you would have kind of seen, George.
That's caused a lot of offence to the real workers who are working in the sweatshop called Sports Direct.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at these Labour MPs and you forget how hard it must be for them working as an MP with a 75k salary. And make that.
And don't forget the expenses. Never forget their expenses. Never just call it 75k. It's 75k plus. And we know how much of a plus the expenses are.
And George, what were you? I think you kind of touched on this. I was reading your tweets on Twitter, but did you not notice that in Parliament it was almost as if the Labour backbenchers were looking for a pat in the back for Theresa May? It was
a day of shame.
Order, etc.
It was a day of shame. Never in the entire history of the Labour Party have Labour MPs jeered and leered and sneered at their own leader whilst cheering and laughing along with the leader of the Conservative Party. But that's what happened on Tuesday.
I mean, it was completely ludicrous to watch. I mean, it happened in the Trident debate. I'm sure you would have watched that yourself, George. It happened at PMQs, and honestly, you're sitting there looking at it, thinking these people are in the same party. Now, obviously, they don't agree with Jeremy politically, but you don't criticise your leader to such an extent like that in front of the whole nation to see. It's just like you don't air your dirty laundry. I've always got that kind of opinion. Even in politics, you've got disagreement within the party. That's okay to go away and have that debate with Jeremy, which they're doing in the leadership election. But to criticise him the way that they were doing in front of the Tories, it just made the Labour Party a laughing stock.
Well, doesn't that all make the point I've been making this evening and many evenings? Doesn't that all make an unavoidable conclusion that if Jeremy Corbyn wins again and wins big again, it's not possible for these people to accept that result. For example, they can't sit in Parliament on his front bench when he's been re-elected for a second time because they've already told us in the most lurid terms what they think of him. They can't go to their own voters and say, vote to make our leader Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister, because they've already told their voters what they really think of him. Their position has become completely untenable, and no one is discussing that because they don't want to make a self-fulfilling prophecy and so on, but this is an inescapable piece of logic, that if you have described your leader in the terms that they have done, you cannot continue to sit under his leadership after September, surely.
Yeah, I mean, George, with regards to that, I mean, you will have also seen the threats that they made anonymously to the papers the other day as well, that they're going to paralyse the Labour Party until they get Jeremy Corbyn out.
Yeah,
it is completely.
So they're going to fight him. They're going to fight him year after year. Yeah. Well, if he allows that, he'd be a mug. Grant, thanks for the call. Rob's in Doncaster. Let's hear from him.
Hi, George. You all right?
Yes, great. Thanks. Go ahead.
Just a quick bone to pick with yourself. How come you're only on one night a week?
Well, I've got enough work to do, you know,
okay.
Rob. I'm doing all kinds of things. I'm making movies and presenting TV shows and so on. I think if we make it a one night a week highlight, we'll soon be back up to where we were on the original mother of all talk shows. Sorry, go ahead.
More. Okay, so just a couple of things. So, yeah, the Trident stuff this week was awful. I work in the NHS, George. I'm a nurse. But that has made me become a member of the Labour Party because you know what? I've always sat on my bum. I've always let, other people have their say. I do vote. But the minute that happened, I thought, no, this is not right. I'm backing Jeremy Corbyn. I've paid £25 of my own money to become a Labour member. I'm backing Jeremy Corbyn. Because you know what? He's a breath of fresh air. He's not, and I always see politicians as like car salesmen.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all the same. And Jeremy is different. Jeremy is what we need in this country, I care about the NHS. I've worked in the NHS for 10 years, and just within 30 seconds, you know, we used to have a team of 10 on A&E at nights. Now I have a team of 3, you know?
Yeah.
I'm seeing the NHS stripped back and back and back. Last Friday night, you know, I had to take a mobile phone at a man's bum over a Pokemon argument, you know? What's the world coming to, George?
God knows, but I don't want to dwell on that thought. Thanks for the call. Frank Sullivan says, George, when will you be reinstated to the Labour Party along with Ken Livingstone? Jeremy could do with heavyweight supporters who take no prisoners. Well, the current situation, Frank, is that Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell and Jack Straw remain in the Labour Party, and Ken Livingstone and me are out of it. Go figure. Martin is in Belfast. Let's hear from him.
Hi, George. George, look, I just want to make a few quick points. From day one, these people, and by the way, I'm a Labour member. I used to live in London. I moved back home, but I retained my membership.
Yeah.
From day one, these people have refused to accept the result of Labour members. Now, it's not just a slur on Jeremy Corbyn as a person. It's a slur on all of us who voted for the man.
Yes, yes.
Every single one of us.
59.9% of those who voted. And
totally.
That was up against real contenders.
Yeah, well, I watched, yeah, that's true. I mean, I watched a guy on This Week last night, a programme you've been on yourself, SNP, no less, John Nicholson, who came across very well, nice man and all the rest of it, no spin, no nonsense, and he said that he witnesses on a day and daily basis the barracking and the bullying of backbench Labour MPs towards their own leader.
It's unbelievable.
It is insane.
It's
And by the way,
unprecedented, Martin. There's never been anything like this.
well, I mean, look, Tony Benn's one of my heroes of all time.
Me too.
And his son is just an absolute disgrace.
Let me ask you about another disgrace, this balloon from the north of Ireland, who is the MP in St Helens, who actually spent the entire day today on the right-wing media saying that Jeremy Corbyn had bullied him by saying that he was going to phone his dad and complain about him. Now, Jeremy has completely denied it, and I believe him. But even if that had been true, what kind of grown man goes on the television and radio to say that his big bad party leader was going to phone his dad? How's that going down in Ireland?
It's not going down very well at all. I mean, the guy himself, I never heard of him before until today. Well, I knew he was a Labour MP previously, but, you know, we don't pay much attention to him. But now, after today, I mean, he's a laughing stock here, and I feel sorry for his father, actually.
Yeah, he's been dragged into all this.
Well, he's probably going about his business. He's probably got journalists outside his house this morning and today and tonight. And, you know, it appears to me that two things. Firstly, the trade unions, as you know, are the lifeblood of the Labour Party. As I know, as a trade unionist, are the lifeblood of the Labour Party. They should step in and say to these people, as they've already done in Bristol, sorry, you're not getting another penny from us for the deeds that you have just done. 3 Bristol MPs have been told they're getting no more money from the CWU. That's a good start. Secondly, members should be able to decide who gets selected to be their representative. You know that under Blair, under Brown, and under Ed Miliband, you've got these spads walking straight out of university from Oxbridge, parachuted in on top of people, foisted on constituencies and told, here's your new MP, say hello, vote for him, and thank you very much.
Teenage scribblers. Martin, I've got to go. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Don't be a stranger. Stay in touch with me on the show. This is the mother of all talk shows.
Listener comrades of the world, unite! The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Let's get through as many as we can. Anthea's in Essex. Anthea, welcome.
Good evening, George. I have to tell you, first of all, that you were right and I was wrong. And you'll be thinking, oh, what is this about?
No, it's not often women say that to me, Anthea, or to anybody.
I know, we should call the newspaper. This is another bit of breaking news, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, in the interest of honesty and approaching it as if one were a Catholic in the confessional, a few months ago, I had a conversation with you where I said that it was a bit of a pointless exercise having the Chilcot report because it's taken so long that everybody's already decided what they think about Mr. Blair and his unlovely friends, and so there was no point to the exercise. And you told me that right was not these weren't your exact words, but effectively that right was right and wrong was wrong, and that if something, truth should be revealed. That was the first point that you made. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had underestimated Mr. Chilcot, Sir Chilcot, Sir John, in that the report wasn't just, of course, about Tony Blair. I had forgotten about the fact that he revealed information about mistakes and wrongdoings that affected the welfare of the soldiers. Yeah. And that therefore what he did might help to prevent, loss of life in the future. But also, he provided me with many a splendid comedy moment because he was a master of the art of that slow-burning upper-middle-class joke where you think afterwards, oh, he just did something really sarcastic. For example, Alistair Campbell was up hill and down dale telling everybody that Mr. Chilcot said that Tony Blair didn't lie at the time of the outbreak of the war. Well,
that's not true, of course.
No, but what he did do, which was better than that, and I loved it, when he gave his public statement, which I have in front of me, he effectively said, well, I don't know if he lied to all of you lot, but he was shameless when he lied to me, because he said that Mr. Blair told the inquiry that the difficulties encountered in Iraq after the invasion could not have been known in advance, and then went on to explain in detail how that was completely untrue, and he knew all along that it was. So in other words, that he lied, thinking that because he was not under oath, that he wouldn't face any consequence for lying.
Well, he will be under oath in due course, Anthea, because the legal actions have already begun, and the families of our bereaved families of our soldiers have already hired counsel and are already fundraising, crowdfunding, individual actions and class actions, and it's going great guns. I think it's on Kickstarter, but it's on one of the crowdfunding platforms. They've raised already hundreds of thousands of pounds to pay for court actions. So Mr. Blair might or might not end up at The Hague, but he's definitely going to end up in court, and maybe court after court after court.
But the other thing, is that Sir John also revealed that he just wasn't very good, which I think is really embarrassing if you're a head of state and world figure, running around in your jet trying to
telling everyone what to do and what they should be doing. Yeah,
it revealed a shambolic mess. It was like Dad's army. But George, can I be sneaky now that I've bought myself some goodwill by telling the whole world that you were right and I was wrong?
Yeah. I might have known there was a but coming.
No, there's no but, actually. I just want you to come with me down fantasy lane. Hold my trembling female hand as we take a walk into hypothetical land. All these people that are telling us that Jeremy Corbyn is so useless and he couldn't possibly win an election. Let us imagine for a moment, gorgeous George, that they're right and that Jeremy Corbyn isn't a good leader and we need to replace him with somebody from among all these ranked masses of bully boys on the in the Labour side, right?
Yes.
Let's suppose that one of them should replace him. I just want to remind everybody that those were the same people who were in charge when Labour lost the most recent general election and the one before
and the one before that, yeah.
See, we don't know for certain if Jeremy Corbyn is unelectable, but we definitely know they are unelectable because they never got elected, did they?
If you elect a leader, you've got to give him a chance of fighting at least one general election.
Well, I just think that they don't present me, and I notice I've carefully and skillfully avoided revealing how I vote, because of course that is for me a sacred place about it, the little booth with that stubby pencil. I'm not telling you how I voted, but what I will say is if they were hoping to woo me to their side by telling me how effective and competent they are.
Yeah, they're not doing a good job on that.
Their record's not great, is it now? And also, Owen Smith, First of all, who he? Second of all, does he think because he's got a Welsh accent, I'm going to vote for him? I do think there's a bit of that going on. I think they think that when we pick a leader, prime minister, it's like picking someone to work in a call centre. That if they've got a warm and approachable and attractive regional accent, that therefore we're more likely to vote for them. Oh, we'll pick him because he's got a Welsh accent. No, and his wife's a primary school teacher. Well, we're not hiring his wife, are we? So why do we need to know that information?
Very good points, Anthea, as always. Anthea in Essex, who told me I was right, and she was right about that. I'm not always right. I was wrong. I think it was 1978, 79, something around that period once. Michael is in West London. Let's hear from him. Michael, welcome.
Hello, George.
Hi.
Hello again, I should say. Thanks for taking the call.
Welcome.
And great call there from Anthea.
Well, she's a great turn. I hope she comes on every week.
I left it a little bit later this evening because last couple of times I called in, some of your other callers have great stuff to say, and I missed out the last times. And also last week there was a coup about 10 minutes before the show ended.
Indeed.
So I thought I'd wait a little bit later tonight.
See if there was any breaking news. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I'll try and
go on quickly.
Try and make my notes as quickly as possible. The first one relates to the one I mentioned to you last week, was that the mainstream media line is just getting stronger and stronger, and your audience should be aware that we're just going to get abused of this every day.
For 8 weeks. For 8 weeks, Michael.
Well, what I'm finding more now is it's all about abuse and intimidation, and this person's had someone moan at her, or this person has had someone thrown at them, or someone's car got beeped at, or whatever. This isn't going to change, and we should all be aware of it. But one thing I saw quite recently was that it turns out that Angela Eagle's story a little while ago about a brick through the window wasn't a brick through her window. In fact, it was a brick through a stairwell window.
It was a stairwell window of a communal building. And she also said today that she was cancelling her surgeries on police advice, and the police had to issue a correction to say that they had given no such advice, nor would they.
Spin and spin, George.
This is all well trodden. This is student politics from the 1980s onwards. Have been travelling in this identity politics.
Oh, sorry,
direction.
I thought you meant my point. Never mind. What I meant was that we're going to see more and more of this, so everyone should be aware of that. The next two, I'll be very quick. They tie directly into that. The £25 fee for Labour members to vote in the leadership election. How can members of the NEC justify that? They must be aware of what unemployment benefits are, how most of their main constituency are struggling for money. How can they possibly justify making the fee to vote in the Labour leadership election £25 when people are getting, £50 to £150 a week to live on?
Well, I'll tell you what, they expected that very few people would be prepared to do it. And they got a big shock, Michael, when 181,000 people did it. Got to press on, because I've got one more caller to get in, and he's from that said regional accent land. He's Welsh. At least he's in Cardiff. Ben, you're the last caller. Go ahead.
Good to speak to you, George. I'm actually English, but I'm happy to live in Wales. I'm happy to be called Welsh, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
Excellent. Great to speak to you. Obviously, I was a big fan of the previous show. Big fan for years. I just want to say about the Labour Party, really. It's pretty disgraceful the state has got us in. It's almost gone into like a paradox situation. It's like they're trying to sort of sell themselves as a Tory-like party, and yet really what people want, what people need these days, is a party for the workers, for the working people. And I'm a working man. I've been taking care of business every day, taking care of business every way, taking care of business all mine, taking care of business and working overtime. Work out.
What moves someone to behave as stupidly as that? I had 9 other callers I could have taken, and I took you. Police have confirmed a 9th person has been confirmed dead. That's 9 dead now in Munich. Police are checking whether the person, the 9th person, was one of the attackers. There'll be more, of course, in the news at 10 o'clock. Let's squeeze in Julian in Reading. Julian, welcome.
George, I'm hoping you can squeeze me in to the question and answer session at the killings of Tony Blair, as I've been booked for the second showing.
Okay. Well, send me a note on Twitter, will you?
I'm not on Twitter, but I'll get someone to do that. It's me plus 2 friends. We're dying to see you, George.
Okay, my friend. I can't guarantee anything.
You've got to squeeze me in.
It's thanks for that, Julian. It's sold out. The whole of the Curzon is sold out on Wednesday night for the premiere, but there is a possibility at the Crouch End cinema. It's on Wednesday night and Thursday lunchtime and Thursday night. And on Thursday lunchtime, I will be speaking at 12:30, just before the showing of the film. So if you're near Crouch End, there's still tickets available there. But don't worry, it's fanning out across the whole country. Little by little, the bookings are coming in. And then, of course, it will be available on DVD and on digital download. Cool Daddy, which is a good way of saying hello to my dear son, my oldest son, who's just come into the box. Cool Daddy says that's because they both support WMDs. Jeremy Corbyn could really do with you as his deputy in the Parliamentary Labour Party. I'd be under arrest if I was with Jeremy in Parliament right now. I wouldn't be able to keep my hands off some of these people. Paddy McIntyre says Owen Smith for double glazing or something. Comes across as a smarmy type. Hopefully people can see through it. Good gag and true. Smith, man of the people, more like man of the money. Time to get our Labour Party back and deselect. Come on, Jezza, says Jim. Ebrar says, George, I'm in despair. Clinton or Trump? A choice between typhoid or cholera. Is this what United States politics has come to? And James Henry House says, how can we, the UK, feel safe about the world in the coming years when the US can't find a credible candidate? Well, it is cholera or what was the option? Typhoid or cholera. I must tell you that I couldn't vote for either of them. I'm supporting Dr. Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, because if we keep on voting for the lesser of two evils, the only outcome can be that the candidates get more and more evil. And that's not a good night into which I think the people of the United States ought to be prepared to go. Well, look, it's been marvellous for me. I hope it was for you, and if it was, you can come back, God willing, next week at the same time, every Friday night from 7 until 10, only on Talk Radio, the mother of all talk shows. Goodness knows what the breaking news will be next Friday, but one thing you can count on, that whatever it is, we'll have something to say about it, and it will be worth listening to.